some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. We're here today to do something really special. I have a special guest with me. I've got Julie, who is not only one of our subscribers, but a huge fan of the franchise. How's it going, Julie?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Very happy to have you. And just to have a little bit of background on this, this was kind of one of those ideas that came about because of our Halloween Fest 2 watch party when we were watching Halloween 2. And Julie has a lot of ideas and thoughts on this film. And so I thought it'd be really cool, to have you here and we can kind of talk about them. And as I'm calling this, our greatest hits. So our greatest hits of Halloween 2 from 1981. Now, just to kind of start off for folks, to give them a little bit of background, what's your memory as far as your connection to Halloween 2, maybe like when you first saw it, or when it was one of those movies that kind of stuck with you? What were your early memories of it?
So it wasn't the first one I've seen. My first Halloween was H2O.
Okay.
Bit of a tangent, but that was my first Halloween movie, and I actually saw it while babysitting, and I was like, this is awesome.
Wow.
Anyway, so then I went back and I watched the first one and the second one, but my favorite thing about the second movie is those yearly AMC marathons that they always have running Halloween night.
Yes.
And whenever I'm not out on a Halloween night and I'm home handing out candy or hanging out, I always catch H2 on TV, and just having it on in the background is it's so atmospheric, and it all takes place in one night, and it just I love it. Yeah.
That's funny you say that, because I think that for me, first of all, Halloween 2 was the first Halloween I ever saw, and it was one of those marathons. I don't know if it was AMC, but I guess Halloween 2 has been one of those movies, especially in the franchise, that gets a lot of TV play, and so for me it was very similar. I saw it on TV one night. It was one of those dark, creepy nights, and I had just kind of started getting into horror movies. I had finally gotten the courage to watch horror movies. I made it through Friday 13th, and Halloween 2 was on one night, and I watched it and I just absolutely hooked. And I eventually went back to the first one, and then, the rest is history. But one thing I wanted to talk about, what you just said, AMC, there's a lot of people that reference the AMC, marathons that they have. And I do think it's really awesome. It was nowadays I have so many of these movies myself, whether it's on physical media or streaming. I have my own marathons, but there was a period of time when every year, and I still do every once in a while, catch a few of them, but AMC, the movie marathons, the horror movie marathons, was a big thing, because they played so many cool movies.
Yeah, and I feel like they were doing great work, because they had the TV cuts, which were cut down to TV 14 or whatever. So
yeah,
that's how I was able to see them at first, because my parents didn't want me watching rated R movies. So
right.
The fact that they had those TV appropriate cuts made it, I think, really accessible to a lot of people. And that's probably why a lot of people mention the AMC marathon.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's really true. I mean, when you said it, it just kind of took me back. I'm thinking in my mind, yeah, man, like every year they would play so many great movies, but they would definitely play some really, good entries from Halloween, from Friday the 13th, and so forth. I don't remember them playing a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street, though. I'm sure they did, but I don't remember a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street in their lineup.
If they did, I never saw it.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty creepy.
yeah,
What do they have against Freddy? What's up? So
I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to pay for the rights. I don't know.
I don't
Really
know
don't know how
either.
that works.
Right. But now
Yeah.
with Halloween 2, now let's talk about some specific parts of the movie here. Now, when we get to the opening, now I don't know how you look at it, but the opening of so many of these Halloween entries is really iconic. Now, and especially now that you know the franchise and you go back and revisit it and whatever, what do you think of the opening of the film? They've got the little flashback of the end of 78, and then of course Loomis is, he's going crazy, and then of course when it starts, you realize it's right after the events of 78. What do you think of Halloween 2's opening and how it affects you as a fan?
I love it so much because to me it feels like it was just so spot on, and I don't know if that's Rick Rosenthal or Dean Cundy to credit for that. I guess both. But it literally, that opening where you get that shot of of Michael falling off the balcony, and it looks like, I don't know if it's from like a street perspective, but you just see him falling backwards off the balcony, and it's a different point of view from what we got in 78. And it's just so cool because it's like, wow, it almost feels like a deleted scene from 78. It's like,
Nice.
It was just so accurate to me. I don't know, for some reason the second movie it's got more rewatchability for me, and like the part I remember most is not even the hospital, but that opening.
Wow.
Yeah, love that.
Cool. No, I didn't know that. All right, that's really interesting. Now, real quick before I give my thought on it, which is very similar to yours, of course. But so you think, or the way you look at it, that Halloween 2 is more rewatchable than 78, is what you mean? Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting.
I was just gonna say maybe it's the pacing, the fact that I always happen to catch it on Halloween night usually, the fact that it all takes place in one night, right? So maybe that's, I don't know, for me, more rewatchability.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I've heard that before, and for me, I kind of go back and forth on it. I think when I was younger, that I felt that way fairly strongly, and I kind of go back and forth on it now, because now 78 is one of those movies that I literally watch every year. And I watch Halloween 2 pretty much every year too. As a matter of fact, what I like to do is watch them back to back. It's like it's like one of the greatest little double features of all time. Yeah, it's really, really cool. But I do think it has a lot of rewatchability. And to me, one of those things, and that was one of the next points I was thinking about, is Loomis. I mean, Donald Pleasance is really more front and center in this film, and I think it's to the film's advantage, because God, he was just I don't know how you feel, but for me, he was just one of those characters that I just loved so much, and it was great to see him more involved in the story.
Yeah, he was great, and it was almost like he was the new main character, and he had a big part in the first one, but really we barely saw Jamie Lee, and it was more of, I think, Loomis's movie, which paid off in the end for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it seemed like maybe this goes to the rewatchability, because I never really thought about it like this until you just said it. But he's on this hunt to find Michael because of the events that happened in the first film. Like he was it was like in the first film, he was like 3 or 4 steps behind Michael. In the second film, he's like 1 step behind. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like right there, almost putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And for me, as a viewer, it's like I'm on the edge of my seat too. It's like, come on, find him. He's a very captivating character in this franchise. To me, the glue, of so many of these films. And unfortunately, when Donald passed away, that was not only sad, because he passed away, but for the films itself, I think there was something missing. There was a heart and a soul that was missing from the later films, which is, of course, to me, they realize that. That's why in so many of the movies there's some type of reference to Dr. Loomis. What about Michael? So now, obviously, in this film, we know that Nick Castle didn't reprise the role. It was Dick Warlock, and obviously, a very storied career, a stuntman, and so forth. Now, he portrayed Michael a bit differently. The mask is the same mask, but it has been a little aged and warped and so forth, thanks to Deborah Hill keeping it under her bed and being a smoker and all that type of stuff. So what are your thoughts on Michael?
The mask is fine. It's a little, especially when the first couple times I saw it, I was like, why does he look so bloated or weird? And it's just his hair color changed. It's just the mask has that orange cast to it from I guess the cigarettes. But that aside, it still looks good.
Yeah,
it's still one of the best in the series, obviously. And as far as the portrayal, it's good. I like it a lot. I wasn't so much a fan of the extremely slow, like almost ridiculously slow walks Dick Warlock does sometimes in the hospital specifically. Like I just think of that him going down the stairs, like
yes. And
it's almost like comically slow,
Right. Yeah.
Whereas Nick Castle, in the first one, he was slow, but again, a scene of him going down the stairs, he's like, he does that little like jog down the stairs, and
right. Yeah, a lot different. I mean, like with Warlock, he's definitely pulling out some Frankenstein vibes, and that scene when it's funny too, because as soon as you said the part where he goes down the stairs, that's the first thought that came to my mind, right? And it is ridiculously slow because Michael, even at this point in the franchise, Michael's a man. We know he's a man. There's obviously some special things about him. How did he survive these events? It's kind of scary a little bit.
He's walking that slowly, that confidently. So sure that he's gonna get you anyway. It's a little it is off-putting.
Yes, very much so.
And also, while we were just talking about it, it just came to mind, maybe it makes sense, like physically he was just shot 6 or 7 times.
Right.
And I mean, if he's meant to be just a person, if you look at it that way, maybe he's in a ton of pain and he's taking it easy this time.
Okay. I like that. I never really thought about it like that, but that's a good point. That's a really good point. I think again, and he made those choices as far as how to move. It was definitely different than Nick, like you said. Nick walked slowly, but there was a purpose to his walking, especially like you said, the scene where he comes out of the darkness in 78, which I think is such a iconic scene, is one of the greatest scenes in the whole franchise. And when Laurie falls down the steps and it goes into the dun 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 dun. When he comes down those stairs, he's not walking like Warlock. He's got a little bit of movement to him, so it is interesting. But with Halloween 2, they definitely upped the level of violence or gore, I would say, as far as what Michael was doing, which was really it was ironic because it was in response to Friday the 13th and this whole new batch of slashers that were inspired by Halloween 78. It's really weird when you think of it like that way. Did you, and I'm sure maybe when you were younger you didn't think of this, but looking back at it now, did you notice that this film was more violent or graphic than 78?
I really didn't when I was younger, because again, with the TV cut, a lot of it, if I remember correctly, was kind of offset or hidden or cut quickly. And
Right.
the only thing that really stood out to me, I think, was it like a needle to the head?
Yep. Right to the temple.
And
Yep.
yeah, oh my gosh, and the hot water death in
Yes.
the hot tub. That was
Yes.
brutal.
Yes.
Other than that, though, yeah, I don't think it really stood out to me or really even mattered because I
Mhm.
just was so into it regardless. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it is interesting, and the like you said, the needle scene to me is a standout. It's really kind of it's one of those scenes that to me is really well done. And if I said this, I think even during the watch party we had for it during Halloween Fest too. I think that scene is almost at that same level as the scene in 78 when he comes out of the darkness, because the scene in 78 when he comes out of the darkness, he's in that room behind Laurie. You know what I mean? Like he's coming out of a room, emerging from the darkness. But in Halloween 2, he's in the room with that nurse and she's stepping backwards into a darkened area. And then his mask illuminates. Again, Dean Cundey, obviously there's a lot of great talent on these films, but Dean Cundey, in my opinion anyways, is he's a hero because he did so many cool things with the camera that even to this day I think is fantastic. But yeah, that needle scene, that always stood out to me. I was kind of like, oh my god, he's standing right there behind her.
Oh yeah, and then like the close up of it. Oh
Yes, it's absolutely gross. But they were doing those things to kind of keep up with the change of slasher films, because obviously Friday 13th, wow, I mean, Tom Savini and the different kills in that movie really upped the gore and the violence and so forth. So everyone working on the Halloween films were basically like, well, we gotta up our game. So even John Carpenter, when he was helping with it, obviously he didn't direct it. He didn't want to do it because as far as he was concerned, it was over at the end of 78. But it's very interesting. That's an interesting story in and of itself. But that scene in the beginning when Michael goes into the house of the girl who's on the phone, that was a scene that was added on to try to up the violence, when he kills her with the knife. But I think that it's still done in a tasteful way, like a Halloween type of way. It's not like overly done. It is a little bit more violent,
yeah.
but not overly done.
Those first two especially have a certain class to them.
Yeah.
Where
Good
it
point.
doesn't feel gross to watch or too much,
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, it
Not
definitely
like
does.
Rob Zombie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I like.
know.
I like both of those, by the way.
Yes. Now,
Too.
okay. Yeah. Now, here's a good question too, because I know, you were very, very vocal with the zombie films, and I'm the type of fan that I appreciate them and I enjoy them. I saw both of them in the movie theater, and obviously I've watched them a bunch of times over the years. They have risen in my personal ranking of the franchise quite a bit, especially within the last several months, because I've done a lot more research as far as the behind the scenes and things that went on, and kind of getting the perspectives of Scout and Danielle and so forth. But specifically when we think about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and they do the homage, in the hospital, what did you think? I know we're talking about Halloween 2 81, but what did you think about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 when they did the homage in the hospital? And how do you think it compares one way or the other to Halloween 2 from 81?
I loved that he did that. I wish it was not a dream, though. That was
Right.
really disappointing to me, like severely disappointing.
Right.
When I first saw it, I was like, I know there's a hospital part, but I know that it's not the whole movie. So then, as it was playing out, I was like, it was just brutal, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
the nurse,
Mhm.
Octavia Spencer. Ooh, I hate that part.
Oh yeah.
Just it was no shade to 81, but Rob Zombie's version was truly like a nightmare.
Mm.
The way he just tore through the hospital
Mhm.
quickly, and just
Mhm.
the overkill of it was just terrifying.
Yep.
And yeah, when she gets to that scene and you kind of know it's a dream because she falls on like that dumpster full of like tons of dead bodies. And
Yeah.
when I first
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like he
Yeah.
is, wow.
Mhm.
But yeah, and then the guard shack part, you're like, all right, she's good. There's a guy here to help her, and then he gets
Mhm.
taken out, and oh yeah. I mean, I get like chills just thinking about it. That
Mm.
to me, it's not better than the original, but I really think he took it and he made it his own, and it was terrifying. It really was. Whereas in the original, it's scary, but I don't find it as horrific and nightmarish like
Mm.
zombies. So
Mm. Yeah. Well said. Well said. I totally agree. He definitely tapped into something that was very just horrible and horrific. I mean, especially like you said, the scene where she lands on the bodies and all that. And I remember when I first saw it in the theater, I was thinking, oh my God, how is she going to survive, this Michael? Because this Michael, he does move quick. He will run at you. And she's even more injured than Jamie Lee Curtis was in 81. At least that's the
yeah.
way Scout portrayed herself, with her leg all messed up, totally all messed up. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this can't be the whole movie, because it's already starting. This is basically the finale from 81. And when I found out that it was a dream, I felt the same way. I was like, oh man, that's kind of like, but I get it. He was trying to do things a little differently. And it's so challenging to do that when you have something that's so revered and iconic, like this franchise, like this character. So I do think it was a very strong opening, though. It was good. It was great, actually. I really, really do. But I agree with everything you said as far as how the difference in tone is, and it's no shade to 81.
It really makes me wonder where the cutoff is between what happened and when the dream starts. I always wondered that, because the part where he gets out of the van and he kills the two drivers. I always wondered, I'm like, did he do that and then he disappeared, or did he disappear right after he fell off the balcony and was shot? But
yeah,
anyway,
well,
that's for another video, I guess.
No, but it's a great point. I mean, this is definitely, we're talking all things Halloween in a way anyway. So the way I looked at it, and I've thought about it too, because I was like, okay, when did the dream start? In my mind, and yeah, this could be a full discussion on its own, but in my mind, after the crash and after Laurie being, worked on in surgery and so forth, to me, that was real life reality. She had a nightmare. That's the way I look at it, but I could be wrong. That'd be something to maybe go back and kind of look at it, moment by moment. Good point. I gotta write that down. That's a good point. That'd be a good discussion.
It's just
Thank
always
you.
been interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All
And
right.
in that same vein, while we're still on that movie, I love how he essentially the same thing as 81, where it starts off right off the first film. You hear the gunshot go off, and then you see her walking on the street. Yeah, I love that parallel too. That he, and maybe that was the Weinsteins, who knows, demanding that it be somewhat similar, at least for a while. But
Right. Yeah, I guess you're right, because the Weinsteins really messed up so much of what went on behind the scenes of his first movie, and obviously Halloween 2. And as I learned more about that stuff, I was thinking to myself, maybe that was his little, the little way for him to say, okay, we're gonna, still have some elements that we did from the first movie, but now I'm gonna go off on my own style, which he did. After the hospital scene, it totally goes into new territory for the characters.
Kind of felt like his first movie, where the first half was his movie, the second half was what he was told to make. So
yeah,
sensing a
absolutely.
pattern there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's like I said, and I said this at Halloween Fest too. I think it's just too bad that the experience for him was so bad, because he's distanced himself from the movies, from the franchise, just from being a Halloween fan. And I do feel bad about that. It's like I couldn't imagine getting the chance to be a director and then getting the chance to direct a movie that meant a lot to you, and you try to go in with your best foot forward. People don't make movies with the intention of making bad movies, but you go in with your best foot forward, and it's such a bad experience that you don't want anything to do with any of these films anymore. That's kind of sad. Yeah, but
it's a real shame.
It is. It really, really is. Now we got to talk about Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. Now, she doesn't do a hell of a lot in this movie, in Halloween 2 from 81, but she's they made sure she was present in enough scenes, and the story accounts for why she isn't very active. And of course, in the finale, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. What did you think of her character in the movie? And did you miss her or not? Do you think it was smart of them to have her kind of in the background? And then what do you think of that fantastic finale?
Thought she had a fine amount of screen time. And I know that's probably not very popular, but like I said earlier, I really like how this is more of a Loomis movie and a side character movie, where we get all these fun little side characters like Bud and but so I wasn't bothered at all. I kind of feel like some of her scenes were a little pointless, and so it's never really bothered me, but I do think they could have done more with her. Kind of like Rob Zombie chose to do.
What'd you think of the brother-sister angle?
I have no problem with it. I actually never had a problem with it. I feel like it almost kind of romanticizes it, though, a little too much, or soap opera-y, a little too... It's almost like on the verge of being a little silly, and it definitely suspiciously feels like Empire Strikes Back. But,
that's a good point.
So, but I like it. I have no problem with it. And 1, 2, and H2O are a great trilogy, with the brother-sister thing. And I don't know. I like it a lot. Gives it kind of more purpose to me.
Now, as a kid, I definitely didn't have an issue with it. As a matter of fact, as a kid, I was like, oh, wow, they're related, so it really hit home for me as a kid. As I got older, and especially in the last several years, and obviously doing YouTube stuff, I look at it a little bit differently. Like, I'm still fine with it, but I do understand why Carpenter doesn't like that aspect of it. And of course, when he wrote it, he was trying to find a way to get them back together. Why would Michael go after her? You know what I'm saying? And he just said, okay, well, we'll make them brother and sister. But he totally hates that concept. He thinks that there should be no explanation of Michael and the fact of his pursuit of Laurie Strode and so forth, which I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it did complicate things, and he really could have made it as simple as he's just finishing the job. She's the one person that got away. Could have been that simple, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe he had just watched Star Wars. I don't know.
Maybe he said he had a six-pack and to help him write it because he was so stuck on
Yeah.
the motivation and so forth. But but it's interesting too with the David Gordon Green films how they took that away. They intentionally made that decision to say, okay, they're not brother and sister, which of course took Halloween 2 out of their timeline. Of course, growing up with it, it was something that was intriguing to me. Now whether or not that means that, like you said, it's a little soap opera-y, so maybe that's why it appealed to me more as a kid, because it was just maybe a little like, come on now, really, they're brother and sister. And
Very
of course I think,
convenient. Yeah.
yes, very convenient. And of course with Rob Zombie, he had to figure out a way to try to make sense of that, and in other words, it was challenging, because she's a little baby when he kills Judith, and of course, how would he know who she is all those years being locked up in Smith's Grove? And then they use the whole idea of he's almost animalistic, he's smelling the flyer that she brings by the house, and of course she doesn't know who he is because she was a baby, she doesn't remember, so what's the link? It does overcomplicate things, I think.
He really went for it. And
He
I think
did,
it works
man.
for his two movies, honestly.
Yeah, well, and I just thought of this just really came to my mind to verbalize it, but I think it worked for his movies too, because he humanized Michael anyways, with the whole backstory, with the family, with the environment he was brought up in, the product of the environment idea and so forth. So Michael was already humanized, so him having a sister and wanting to pursue her for whatever reason, it kind of worked in his movies. I never really
Good.
put all that together like that. Very cool.
Yeah, he really set it up like baby Laurie and his mother were the only people he didn't want to hurt.
Right.
Who he didn't have it out for at the beginning, at least.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The finale of Halloween 2/81, to me, it's still not only one of my favorite finales in the franchise, well, one of my favorite finales in horror, but I think it's just it's so well done, like the tension, because you've got Laurie who's injured, she's on doped up on drugs, the hospital, although I will say, and I've said this 1,000 times, that hospital is the emptiest hospital of all time. There is no one there, but it makes it so creepy. But I love it, man, when he first comes down that hallway and stabs the nurse, and the look on Jamie Lee's face when she sees him, and then boom, that music kicks in, and then even with Warlock walking super slow, there was this great tension and atmosphere. What are your memories or thoughts on the finale and how everything came together?
Yeah, I love that part where she sees the nurse get the screwdriver or whatever it is in the back, and she really has that look like, oh wow, like he's here, he's actually here now, my fears are validated. She's drugged up, she's in a bad way, stumbling around. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's nobody in the hospital, I don't know, I always kind of thought, well, 80s night shift, small town. And it's kind of a long finale too. It's kind of drawn out, and I like that. And then of course the very end. Well, I guess we'll get to that, but that's got a really great part in it. So.
Yeah. Well, no, you could talk about the end too. Because I was just thinking as you're talking about it, I'm like seeing it in my head. I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Well. Okay. Well, I have an issue with it, which I guess I'll say first. When Jamie Lee's on the ground and she, shoots his eyes out perfectly. As a kid, I was like, well, maybe she like grazed his forehead and the blood just happens to run down his eye.
Yeah.
It just seems so. I don't think she ever shot a gun before that, but anyway,
Right.
that's probably my only problem with it. But um, and then the good stuff. When he's after Michael's eyes are shot out, and he's just kind of swinging the knife blindly, and Loomis tells her, he's like, get out, and she's able to leave the room. And then he's standing there alone with the tanks hissing, and he pulls out the lighter. Michael's still, swinging away at the air, and then he says, "It's time."
It's time, Michael.
And then it cuts back to Michael, and he stops swinging, and he's just standing there. It's like he's just waiting. Like he knows what's about to happen. He's just waiting for death or whatever he thinks is about to happen. I think that's so cool.
Wow, yeah, I like that. That's a great point. I never really thought about that particular moment when he stops, because he does.
I only just noticed it, I think, on our watch party a couple weeks ago. I mean, I really was focused and was like, wow, that's cool. Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, there's totally that possibility, no doubt about it at all. And of course, his connection with Loomis and so forth. I definitely could see that. That's a great point. I'm gonna jot that one down too. But yeah, it's a really cool scene. The shooting of the eyes, that definitely is kind of like, okay, now wait a minute, what are we saying here? It's like, where did he get hit? And I don't know. It was a little out there. I kind of just chalk it up to, whatever. It's they were trying to figure out to do something big, in the movie, and to show that he was unstoppable. It doesn't make sense whatsoever, like you said, because I mean, just thinking about it, it's like she shot him perfectly, and it's like, who can do that? But yeah,
But it makes for an amazing shot with the blood running out of his eye holes. So
just
for that, I'll excuse it.
Yeah, no, that's an iconic shot. Even just thinking about it today, it's like, it's not only iconic, but it's creepy. It works so well because the blood and the contrast with the mask and so forth. So it is definitely really, really cool. But crazy ending, man. And Loomis, and I've said this before, Loomis at this point, this is the, it didn't start here. I think it started with Ben Tramer, but Loomis is ready to do whatever he has to do. And this is we start to see the beginnings of it in this film. But when he lights that lighter, there's got to be some patients in this hospital, in that end of the hospital. Loomis he's ready to kill and possibly killed people. I mean, it's a huge explosion. Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember in one of your older videos where you guys talked about, like, he kills a bunch of babies or something.
He probably did.
I was wow, I never thought of it that way. I assumed this hospital's pretty empty, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not making fun of obviously killing people or babies, but in the context of the film, it's kind of like when he does that, it's not like he's prepared to figure out the blast radius, and what, and it looks like a pretty significant explosion. So anyone that's down on that end of the hospital or in that wing could have been injured or possibly killed. So Loomis, I'm telling you, man, he's such a great character, man. I just love talking about him so much. But yeah, the ending of the film, it's fantastic. It's a great finale, and it still holds up. When we were watching it, the other week, I was just like on the edge of my seat and amped up. It still holds up for me. So I think it's a great movie. Yeah.
And the practical fire effects.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, they really kept the camera on them, showing the fire burn. And, I think that was also a signature of the time, as far as horror films, with these different stunts and so forth. Great stuff, man. I think it adds a charm to these movies that isn't easily replicated nowadays because of CGI and all of that type of stuff. Now, you've been pretty vocal. You knew we'd get to this as we wind down, but you've been pretty vocal about Jamie Lee Curtis's wig, and just just the back and forth of it. Tell me your thoughts on the wig, and just all of that, because I knew we had to touch upon this because it was just so funny when you first mentioned it. And I guess I'm the type of person that, even though I at first didn't know about it as a kid, and obviously realized it was a wig as I got older, for whatever reason, when I see her in Halloween 2, I don't really think about the wig, but when you brought it up, it was kind of like, yeah, there were certain scenes where it just really did look bad.
Yeah. So when we watch 78 for Halloween Fest, we're gonna have to keep notes and really check and see the accuracy of it, because it's been a little while since I've seen 78, but I think they did a good job, and in most scenes it's fine. But that one scene, I think when she's in the parking lot crawling, and it's like a straight on shot, but you just see like it looks bad, but it looks a little straw, like, I don't know.
Yes, I know the exact scene. Yes, it's true. I know the exact scene you're talking about. It's that scene when she's on the ground when Loomis and Marion and the cop get to the hospital, and she's trying to call out to them, and she's like, she can't really talk, and it is straight onto her face, and yeah, the wig definitely looks kind of like, wait a minute.
It's looking tough there.
Yeah,
but...
it's looking tough. Right.
But funny enough, it looks better than the other night when we watched Rob Zombie's H2, and Sherry Moon was rocking a either intentionally bad or I don't know wig, but hers was worse. And that movie is 20 years newer, so 30.
Yeah.
So.
Good point. Yeah, they definitely. Sherry didn't have a good one either. That's true, man. It's funny because you think about this franchise, and you've got these instances of bad wigs. You've got horrible masks. You have even a CGI mask in H2O.
Oh gosh.
It's like, what is going on? This is a top tier horror franchise. We are making rookie errors here.
The first time I watched each movie in the series, I was shook, like completely dumbfounded. I was like, how do you mess it up that badly?
Right.
I know they whatever, they had to make a new one for each film, but it's like, the H4 one, the H5 one, inexcusable.
Right.
That scene in H4 when he first, he's in the dark, he's in Jamie's bedroom, and the lightning strikes, and he sits up or whatever, and you see just plaster white, zero character on the face. I was like, what is that?
Right?
Shockingly bad.
It is. It's like, come on, guys. William Shatner is so famous. You can't recreate a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask. What is going on here? I didn't get it. I truly didn't get it. Which is why, and I guess this will be. I know I said we're ending up, but this will be one of the last things. Which is why, or not the only reason why, but it's one of the reasons why I so respect what David Gordon Green and the crew did in this trilogy with the mask, the lighting, the way that James Jude Courtney was very serious about the role and injecting, the evil into his character, playing Michael Myers and so forth. I think they did a fantastic. I mean, they spent so much time on the mask, recreating a mask that was 40 years, old, and so forth. And I I thought to myself, why couldn't these other movies have even 50% of that type of care and integrity? You know?
I think the answer is, unless there's some legal thing we aren't aware of, I think the answer is they could have, but they didn't.
Right.
Because
Right.
I used to collect Myers masks, and I would buy them from
Ooh.
independent art dealers online.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it was a little like, because, you know, I think it was Trancas International or whatever. They didn't want people doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality of the masks that I used to own, I've sadly sold them. I wish I didn't. But incredible, perfectly accurate replicas of the 78 mask. Like, and from each film, replicas. So, in my opinion, unless there's a legal issue that was going on with the Shatner mask, like, during those sequels, there's no excuse. In my opinion.
No, excellent point. Wow, I didn't know that you collected the mask and everything. Now that might have to be, you know, a little bit of a conversation for another time. That's really, really cool. Yeah.
I'll have to send you I should still have pictures from the eBay listing for the 78 replica that I have. And I'm kicking myself for selling it, but
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I bought
that's
it from, like I said, an independent artist for like $200, and I sold it for triple that. And
Nice.
I did it at a time where I was in between jobs, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. I hear you. Well, hey, one of these days you're gonna have to restock up.
I know.
One of these
I've
days,
been
yeah.
looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll get ready to end it up here. I mean, this was a lot of fun talking about, you know, not only Halloween 2 from '81, but also, you know, some of the things that connect to it, like Rob Zombie, like the David Gordon Green films, and even getting a little bit of a preview of some of your fandom for the franchise and stuff. That was really cool. I didn't know that. That's very, very cool. But we might have to do this again, because I'm going to be going through several more of the films, and obviously you're a big fan. You have some really interesting insights. You know, I told you that before we did this, and which is why I wanted to invite you on. And I think it's really cool because I obviously love the films. I love talking about them and talking about them with folks that also enjoy them and have interesting perspectives. It's so much fun to do.
Thank you for having me. I feel very lucky.
Oh.
It's a blast. I could talk in circles a while.
Yeah. No, it was great to have you on. So for you guys watching, we hope that you enjoyed this little stroll down memory lane for Halloween 2, the greatest hits. Leave us comments. Let's talk about some of these moments in in this movie, I should say, and any favorite points in the film that you enjoy. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps to support the channel. And you can also follow Julie on Instagram. If you want, I'll put your Instagram information in the description, you know, of this video.
Yeah, sure.
You know, she's really awesome and a really big supporter of not only the Nightwatch Zone, but the whole community. And it's a really cool community, and it's fun talking, you know. So we will catch you guys later. Take it easy. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Nightwatch. Peace out and bye-bye.